Dobar den, почитувани гледачи. Денеска е 2 май 2015 година и вие ја следите емисијата Македонско издание со која гостуваме секоја втора сабота во вашите домови. Ова емисија е 355-та поред и, како и секоја друга, ќе ве информира за поважните настани во нашава комуна во Торонто и ќе ве забавува со наша македонска музика. Јас сум Победа Пискачева, продуцентот и уредникот на ова ваша програма, за која, секако знаете, е независна телевизиска продукција и вашата помош за обстојување на ова емисија е многу значајна. Затоа апелираме да ги рекламирате вашите бизнеси преку нас со оглед дека оваа ваша телевизиска програма влегува во 4 милиони претплатнички домови во Онтарио и ви овозможува експонирање на исто толкав број на домови. Емисијава ја започнуваме со нашата редовна порака. За да набавите возило со врвен квалитет по поволни финансиски услови, јавете се кај Дени на телефон 905-881-3900 и прашајте за спектакуларниот попуст за месец мај, во кој сите оние кои ќе финансираат или ќе земат на лизинг одредени врсти на возила, ќе добијат додатни поволности. Освен Денис Пасоевиќ, кој е генерален менеджер, можете да ги побарате Бане Јокиć, финансиски менеджер, и Рада Вазиć, која е бизнис менеджер. Нова локација каде можете да ги добиете овие сите поволности е во Хајпарк на 3275 Dundas Street West. Емисијава ја започнуваме со интервјуто со Скот Тейлор, кое што го снимивме на 15 април оваа година во просториите на Royal Canadian Military Institute во Торонто. Скот Тейлор беше присутен на проекцијата на докудрамата Locked Up на National Geographic TV, која што е базирана на неговото киднапирање во 2004 година во Ирак.
I didn't want the blindfold because I got more afraid if I couldn't see. So not only did I get the blindfold, I also got a gag. And then they put a sandbag on my head as well. On a note to be executed, there's no reason to doubt these people. And I'm forcing down the panic. And at that moment, one of their guys started to punch me.
As the movie shows, I mean, obviously I was taken out to be executed 6 times in 5 days, others being tortured to death or to be beheaded or to be shot. So there was that emotional level, and that's the movie really well, I think, captures that aspect of it. But one of the reasons that we're bringing it around on the circuit again now is because of what's happening in Iraq. This happened in 2004 at the height of the American occupation, and people in Canada, we weren't involved in it. I was reporting on it for outlets including European and North American and Al Jazeera, but in Canada it wasn't a big deal. My being taken hostage was noted, but it was removed from us. But now that we've got Canadian soldiers going into Iraq, suddenly people are starting to ask questions about what are the complexities. I mean, I wish they're asking more, but that's the reason why we can bring this out, to show people just how challenging it is to work in that part of the world, and the fact that we're committing troops to the equation now. We should be paying a lot more attention to who makes up that part of the world.
Well, Canadian role is more and more noticeable in this kind of wars, and it's not really that all Canadians approve this.
At the moment, it's still a popular war. The fact that we're bombing ISIS targets, even when the government decided to bomb targets inside Syria, I mean, it absolutely violates international law. There's only 2 rationales for bombing in a foreign country, in a sovereign state. One is if the government, the recognized legitimate government of that country, invites you to bomb in their support. That's never happened. We have recognized the Assad government. We've declared it illegitimate, so there is no way that can happen. And the second way would be if the UN passed a resolution authorizing international coalition effort for whatever reason. Neither of those two have been met. Our government declares that they have moral clarity without giving any kind of legal clarity to what we're doing. So us stepping up, violating international laws with no clear purpose, there's no clear objective. We don't want Assad to remain in power, but we're bombing his enemies. We don't want an additional influence of Shiite Muslims in the south of Iraq, particularly if they're coming in from Iran. And Iranian officers and soldiers are in Iraq now. That's already happened. So we're bombing in support of them. That's not our decision. If we're bombing in support of the Kurds want an independent Kurdistan, which is not something which our ally and the neighboring country, Turkey, necessarily wants, because it's going to destabilize them. So with its unclear objective, the fact that we would take such a huge measure to violate international law is something Canadians should be much more concerned about. Should they be concerned about their lives here in home? No. This is where the government has made us afraid. People are afraid of ISIS. They saw videos. They saw people on camera somewhere in Syria threatening us that they're going to get us in our bedrooms. Bring it on. I'm an ex-soldier. My wife's a black belt. Come in, please. It's not going to happen. ISIS has not staged an attack here. Even if some group loosely affiliated with ISIS has Al-Shabaab or whatever has declared the West Edmonton Mall as a target. I mean, we're trying desperately to put ourselves out that we are relevant to that part of the world. We're not a former colonial power. We don't have a history in the region. The British do, the French do, the Americans have created a modern history by killing a lot of people there and making a lot of big mistakes. Canada has thankfully not done that. We shouldn't have anything to fear from these people. It's almost like we're deliberately pushing and saying, look at us, we're here, we want to be a target too. And it's almost like the government rejoices if indeed there's some connection that makes Canada stand out amongst these guys. And now by the end of this summer, we are deploying troops near Ukraine. Again, no idea why the government would choose to escalate this. This is something which cooler heads need to prevail. This is not the Middle East, this is Russia. Russia, I mean, for years we knew that the mutually assured self-destruction was what kept the world from actually pulling the trigger. And here you've got people pushing. I mean, Ukraine is not a NATO country. We are not on a NATO mission, but by putting trainers into that country, taking sides without really having a clear objective of what Ukrainian entity we are supporting, we know that it's corrupt. The Kiev regime is corrupt. The people in the eastern Ukraine rejected it. They owe billions of dollars, like 74 billion is what they need just to see daylight for 2 years as a bailout. Well, where's that money going to come from? Canada's offering some hundreds of millions. That's not going to fix it. It still is money out of Canadian coffers, and if this current mission costs us $500 million for our troops, just to be there to train, to be poking the Russians, where's that $500 million? It's still coming out of Canadian Treasury, whether it's the Defense Department's budget, or it's something they can't buy that they would have normally purchased in order to achieve what? Further rattling the Russian sabers? I mean, it's not something, again, other than the voters that we have in Canada, the Ukrainian Canadians, and I don't think they really want this to explode into a full-on confrontation. They want aid money, they want promises, but I don't think anyone believes that Vladimir Putin really wants to gobble up Ukraine. He's got the Crimea. He rejected these two independent, the Donetsk and Luhansk. They had referendums. They want to join Russia. He didn't accept it. If he really was a power-mad, map-gobbling, crazy man, he would have jumped at that, and he didn't. So cooler heads need to prevail. Like I said about the Middle East, we don't have a stake in the game. Why do we have one in Ukraine? Other than 1 million Ukrainian Canadians who are going to vote come October. And you always monitor the situation in these troubled countries, regions. Balkan was one of them long time ago when you were... Favorites. Macedonia is still a favorite, So what is happening right now, because it's so quiet at the Balkans, that in regards of, any... The only way that the Balkans can get any news these days is if there's any connection to ISIS. And we've had stories where they've had Albanian Kosovars that were ISIS members or picked up. It's one of the largest recruiting grounds. And that takes us back, to how many mistakes we've made in jumping to the wrong conclusions for decades now. and creating these messes that we don't fix. For the Albanians, I mean, in Kosovo, there's a huge drain right now. You know that. There's an exodus. People are flooding through Serbia. They're getting into Europe. They're abandoning it like rats from a sinking ship. Young people are fleeing out. The country is economically unstable. It's corrupt. Crime is through the roof. And people are leaving because they want a future. They thought their future was in an independent Kosovo. They thought that if they could just get rid of the Serbian authorities or Macedonian authorities, everything's going to be fine. But the world didn't make sure that the Albanian authorities that took control respected the rule of law. They were, in fact, mostly criminals that took over. It's a criminally run entity. This is not, as much as the emotion of being independent and being nationalist and being proud to be Albanian, that's great. But what they really want is prosperity, stability, rule of law, and a future. And this current government in Kosovo cannot provide it for them.
And the idea of Great Albania still should scare us?
Unfortunately, because you're failing at what you have in Kosovo, and people are leaving, and it's the only answer for that is then to generate more of the nationalist emotion and the false pride, and to blame it on others regionally, and that's going to include, of course, Macedonians and other parts of Serbia that are still under their control, that have Albanian majorities in that region. So, Greater Albania is still a dream which is still alive. No one looks around and says, "Well, wait a minute. Pardon my English, but why do we want to create a greater shithole?" I mean, they're taking it from the nucleus of what they've got, but they don't think that way. It's always somebody else. It's the reason why they're not succeeding. But left on their own, as an independent state, they have not prospered, and that's a sad reality.
Scott, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Always different view. Thank you.
Thank you.
За сите ваши потреби да купите ново или користено возило под поволни финансиски услови и технички да их одржувате дени или рада од Nissan Willowdale ќе ви помогнат на наш јазик 905-881-3900. А сега, почитувани гледачи, да проследиме една музичка номера. И во денешнава емисија имаме неколку информации. За сите ваши прослави и одбележувања користите ги и банкет салите во црквата Свети Климент Охридски во Торонто. За информации и резервации јавете се на 416-421-7451. 73-тиот поред голф турнир Macedonian Open во организација на канадското македонско место ќе се одржи на 8 јули годинава. Подгответе се за уште едно спортско такмичење и дружење кое оваа година го одбележува своето 73 годишно постоење. За професионално и поволно дизајнирање на веб сајтови побарете ги TJ Hosting на 647-547-3061. Македонското меѓународно движење за човекови права со задоволство известува дека го зголемија фондот наменет за финансирање на весниците на македонските малцинства Народна волја во Пиринска Македонија и Нова Зора во Егејска Македонија, како и за публикување и дистрибуција на историски и тековни македонски изданија. Бугарија и Грција и натаму продолжуваат со нивната политика на сузбивање на секаков израз на македонската идентификација. Со овој чекор, Македонското меѓународно движење за човекови права обезбедува услови за истекнување на нашата вистинска историја и за ширење на македонската култура и традиција во регионите во кои живеат македонци. Без помош на Македонското меѓународно движење за човекови права, македонските малцинства на Балканот не би имале пристап до изданијата на својот мајчин јазик. Апелираме до сите македонци широм светот да ги поддржат овие непроценливо значајни организации, давајки со тоа придонес за македонските човекови права. Истакнува Стојко Стојков, ко-председател на ОМО Илинден Пирин. Нашето време е сега, помогнете, донирајте. Вклучете се уште денеска во акцијата по $1 на ден за Македонското меѓународно движење за човекови права за поддршка на македонските малцинства на вебсајтот кој што е на екранот. За сите ваши потреби да купите ново или користено возило под поволни финансиски услови и технички да их одржувате дени или рада од Nissan Willowdale ќе ви помогнат на наш јазик 905-881-3900. Во денешнава емисија имаме и една жална вест. На 6 април годинава во својата 84 година од животот почина Брайан Паркинсон. Во продолжение ја пренесуваме тажната порака од фамилијата Паркинсон до гледачите на македонско издание. Brian Parkinson, devoted husband and loving father, passed away in Toronto on April 6, 2015 at the age of 84. A kinder, more gentle soul you could not find, not ever replace. He lived for his wife Connie, his one and only true love. They were inseparable and as much in love on the day he passed away as when they first met in 1957. Born in England and not Macedonian, Brian knew as much about Macedonia and its history as if he were born there. Brian was a fixture at all the Dambeni picnics and dances and was a huge fan and supporter of the program Macedonian Edition, which we're watching today. He is survived by his loving wife Connie, his son George, George's wife Jackie, her daughter Keira, his youngest son Paul, and all the beautiful members of his immediate and extended families, including his sister-in-law Mary Spanopoulos and her beautiful children and grandchildren. Forever with us, his easygoing manner and quick humor always made the world a lighter and brighter place, will be forever cherished. The world has lost a beautiful man and true English gentleman. Bog da go prosti, family Parkinson.
Was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. She tied it to her kitchen chair, and she broke your drum, and she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah, 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 Well, baby, I've been here before. I seen this room and I walked this floor. I used to live alone before I knew ya. I seen your flag on the marble arch. Love is not a victory march. It's cold and it's broken. Well, there was a time when you let me know what's really going on below, but now you never show that to me, do you? And remember when I moved in, you and the holy dark was moving too, and every breath we drew the hallelujah, 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 Well, maybe there is a God above, but all I ever learned from love was how to shoot somebody who outdrew ya. And it's not a cry that you heard in the night. It's not somebody who's seen the light. It's cold and it's broken. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah,
Во продолжение повторно проследите ја ова порака. За да набавите возило со врвен квалитет по поволни финансиски услови, јавете се кај Дени на телефон 905-881-3900 и прашајте за спектакуларниот попуст за месец мај. Почитувани гледачи, тоа е се што подготвивме за оваа емисија на Македонско издание. До нашата наредна средба за 2 недели, кога повторно ќе се видиме со нова програма, Ви благодарам за вашето ценито внимание, приятно и довидување.